YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Today we're ranking every NFL secondary for the 2021 season, going from 32 to 1, so worst to best. And we ranked safety duos, corner duos, now around the entire secondaries, how they work together. And not just the starters, but also the depth/rotation pieces definitely play a part. Some teams with some really good rotation players here. So excited to rank these. We'll rank more units like this. We'll do offensive line. We'll do pass rush units and more. We'll eventually rank offense, defense, everything. We rank everything. We predict everything. We got you covered. Smash that like button, subscribe. And make sure you follow us on Twitter. All that be much appreciated. Link in the description and comments for anything you need. And here's our Twitter. Always some sneak peeks of some of these videos, polls, updates on the NFL and the channel, so check it out. Be much appreciated. Starting at the bottom here, unfortunately, the Dallas Cowboys are coming in at 32. I do like their young cornerback duo. You just can't expect a whole bunch from it right away. I do like Trevon Diggs. I liked him a lot out of Alabama. Raw prospect, a lot of upside as a playmaker. And they had Calvin Joseph, who I liked a lot out of Kentucky as well. You just can't expect a whole lot from the young duo right away. There could be some growing pains. Safety group, Donovan Wilson actually balled out last year. I would like to see more of that to prove himself. And they had DeMonte KZ, but is that a guy that can stay healthy? Jordan Lewis in the slots. Anthony Brown is a rotation corner piece. There's not a lot there, but they are heading in the right direction. The Falcons coming at 31. I do like their young corner duo as well. I was impressed with A.J. Terrell last year, and Isaiah Oliver's a solid, lengthy corner. And they have Kendall Sheffield, who possibly can play in the slot. They added some safeties this offseason. They really changed their safety group, but it is the weakest safety group in the league, in my opinion. Corner's a little more important in most schemes, but it doesn't really boost the lack of safety play up enough for the Falcons, so they come in at 31. Texans at 30. I mean, they're kind of deep in a way. They got a lot of rotation pieces. There's no star power, obviously. Justin Reed's probably the feature piece. He's been a little underwhelming since the rookie year, which was great. Bradley Roby's a solid corner, but it feels like they got a bunch of slot corners in there. Then you have Lonnie Johnson, who played corner, moving to safety. They do have a piece that's probably a rotation piece, and a guy like Eric Murray who can play corner, slot, or safety. They had Terrence Mitchell. So they have players. They have depth. There's just no, I shouldn't say solid piece, because Justin Reed's solid, Bradley Roby's solid. It's just nothing to take over there. It just mainly they're relying on the how deep the group is, I suppose. They do have Desmond King in a slot. That kind of helps it. That was kind of what helped it not be last, I guess, because it is a battle between a lot of these teams. They're so close, but having a top-tier slot corner sure helped. The Jets having a very good safety group helps here. And don't forget about LaMarcus Joyner. They had LaMarcus Joyner, who can play safety or corner. I'm guessing he's going to start in the slot. So you look at Marcus May, Ashton Davis, and LaMarcus Joyner. That looks pretty good. They just have the weakest cornerback group in all of football. A couple of under-the-radar, underrated guys, though, LaShawn Austin and Bryce Hall. They could be better than expected, but at the end of the day, to me, it's the worst cornerback group, and that does play a huge part here. And the Seattle Seahawks are very much in the almost same exact boat, and it's interesting that Adams coming from the Jets to the Seahawks a year ago. It just happens to be a coincidence here, but that's really the difference. Two teams that I actually like their safety group a lot. The Seahawks can be a little better there, but you factor in, what's the first thing you think of when we're talking about secondaries? What's their job? Coverage. That's the first thing. I do worry about the Seahawks coverage a little bit. Having that great of a safety duo, you would think, even, I make a rough draft. I kind of break it down, each piece, the starters, the depth, everything to get, I don't just slap rankings up here. I break it down and make sure it's right, in my mind here. First glance, you want to put the Seahawks way higher because the safety duo is so damn strong, especially on paper. But how are they as a coverage unit? That is where they're lacking. It's not the best coverage out there. Quandre Diggs really carrying the back end for sure. They do have a few rotation pieces possibly for corner. But they did lose some pieces as well. Between Witherspoon, Reed, and Flowers, there's probably a battle for the starting corner spot, but cornerback group is worse. I had it as the second worst in football, and that's kind of weighing it down as well, but the lack of coverage in general. The Eagles, they got big pieces like Darius Slay and Anthony Harris, so that's kind of what keeps it from the bottom. I'm curious too. I liked Kayvon Wallace out of Clemson a lot a year ago. They drafted him, but he was kind of one of those. To me, he felt like a new school linebacker. He was a safety technically, but he was so good in the box, almost as an outside linebacker. They played well from the slot, so I do really like him as a ball player. Can't wait to see how they use him this year with his new staff in his second year. That could boost this group. If that guy plays to where I think he can play, it could boost the group. But they're lacking at corner a little bit, but I think McPherson could be a depth guy right away, so I guess that helps. I know I did like their draft. I think most people are happy with their draft, but people were a little disappointed they didn't get a corner earlier maybe because they are lacking in that end. Slay's got to play better, but he's really not the piece that's lacking. Cardinals at 26. Yeah, I wish the secondary was better. They have the pass rush now to help it, but nothing really going at corner. Malcolm Butler declining a little bit. Could be good with the pass rush in front of him here, but that's kind of your main piece at corner. Alford probably most likely playing the opposite side. Byron Murphy's going to be a solid slot corner. Safety. Budda, really, what it feels like is Budda Baker really carrying this group big time. Decent depth. Deontay Thompson, Banjo, decent at best depth here. So it does feel like Budda Baker carrying the group. At least you have kind of that star power. Detroit Lions kind of growing on me. The idea of the Detroit Lions secondary, can't really say they're growing on me. We haven't seen this group play yet. The idea of it, because it's pretty deep actually with young studs, I suppose. We'll see if they can be that. But you got Akuda, Aruarie, good young group. They add Melifanu. They add Quentin Dunbar as well, don't forget. One of those guys going to play in the slot. We'll see who it's going to be. I'm thinking maybe Dunbar could play in the slot, but the safety group is young and they could be getting better as well. I think it's a solid young group that could have some growing pains that's pretty deep right now. So Lions, I kind of boost them up a little bit after realizing the depth and what they could become here. Next group, Pittsburgh Steelers 24. This is probably the worst depth/rotation in all of football for the secondary. Luckily, that is not the most important thing when we're talking about any unit, but it does play a part because they really got nothing outside their starters here, and that's a little bit of a concern. Joe Hayden and what I expect to be Cam Sutton, which would be ideal if he played the slot, is Justin Lane, who is very much unproven. Is he going to play outside? Hayden's declining a little bit as well. Minkah Fitzpatrick, they got a star safety there. Edmonds has been disappointing. So it's similar to the Cardinals here. You kind of got Budda Baker, Minkah Fitzpatrick really carrying this group, and that's kind of a problem to me. The secondary at the end of the day will look better than what it really is, and it has been because of the pass rush, but I'm not ranking the pass rush here. I'm ranking the secondary. Chicago Bears at 23 kind of took a hit losing Kyle Fuller. That was a pretty tough loss. Jalen Johnson, I like his upside. Of course, he played very well in his rookie season. He'll play that number one role now. Obviously, there should be Desmond Trufant on the opposite side. It could be Artie Burns, but I don't think so. Shelley likely in the slot. Eddie Jackson has been playing his game really as of lately, but he's still a solid safety. Deshaun Gibson, it's kind of Eddie Jackson and Jalen Johnson in there, but we really don't know what to expect from those guys. I know Eddie Jackson can be a top-tier free safety if the Bears allow him to be. That's kind of the problem. And Jalen Johnson, how will he be in the second year, kind of covering more ones. Jaguars are actually kind of deep. I like Shaq Griffin. C.J. Henderson, much like Jalen Johnson, could still have some growing pains. Even though I like Johnson better, last year and probably this year. That's besides the point. And then you add Tyson Campbell, who they actually like in the slot over there. That's going to be interesting for sure. But that's a pretty good young trio right there. I can't expect a whole lot right away. And you got a few safeties. You got Rashawn Jenkins, Andre Sisco, who I like, Daniel Thomas. So they actually got quite a few ball players in there, young ball players. It's just that there could be some hit or miss weeks here throughout this season. Raiders at 21. I actually like the Raiders cornerback group. I've talked about that. Surprisingly, but they didn't have Casey Hayward last year. Now they have Casey Hayward. That helps. I like Trayvon Mullen. He got beat at times last year, but can't base everything off that. He's showing promise to me. So I like him. Damon Arnett taking a lot of heat. Yes, he was overdrafted. That doesn't mean he's not going to be good. We'll see what happens. I'm not saying he will be either, but better defensive mind, Gus Bradley, better scheme in there, so that can help guys like that. We'll see the younger slot corner Robertson. We'll see where he could get this year. That they got in the safety group. It's a pretty good young safety group. They got some pretty good depth across the board as well. I do like the corner duo, though. That kind of helps it for sure. Then you go to the Saints. Yeah, it feels like Lattimore's really carrying the cornerback group, and he hasn't really lived up to expectations, but he's still a very solid corner. And the safety group, I don't want to say Marcus Williams is carrying it, but it's kind of close because Jenkins is declining, but he still is a pretty instinctive safety. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the slot, definitely helps here, but just not too much depth. I do like the Debo pick, but it just kind of, you got a pretty solid corner, you got a pretty solid safety, pretty solid slot guy. Just not, it doesn't come together as a whole unit really, but enough to be in the top 20. 49ers, there's really no star power at all here, but they got a list of guys, Jason Verrett, Emmanuel Mosley, Kwan Williams in the slot, and you got Tartan Ward at safety. You got a couple other safeties that could fill in though, and Tavarius Moore. They add Tony Jefferson. I think it will be kind of used as a blitz type, in blitz packages, perhaps. We'll see. So they have injury concern. They don't have star power, but they got a long list of names that can play. It's about staying healthy. The Chiefs with Ward and Snead at the corner. I think there could be some hot and cold weeks there. They've shown promise for guys that weren't really supposed to be anything. Rashad Fenton, same situation. He's looked pretty solid. Don't forget about DeAndre Baker. They do have DeAndre Baker. We'll see what we get from him this year. Safety group is what's strong about this. I mean, you got Matthew, you got Thornhill, and you have Daniel Sorensen, who's been solid for them as well. So I guess some balance there, but mainly the safety group is not carrying, but yeah, around there. Panthers at 17. Panthers actually grew on me a little bit during this process because you look at the cornerback group. Right off the bat, you see J.C. Horn, you see Dante Jackson. You can't forget they added A.J. Bouye, who isn't the same as he was a few years ago, but he's still got something in the tank. Troy Pride Jr. is a decent young player as well. They have Rashawn Melvin, so I think they'll be set with the starting outside corners and in the slot corners and the rotation. Safety is a little bit of a question. Jeremy Chin played well last year, but he did play a little bit of that box linebacker role there as well. And then, the other safety is kind of a little bit of worry with Justin Burris there. But yeah, I guess the depth, and they're actually a little stronger as a whole at the cornerback position than you may think right off the bat. So that made me kind of have the Panthers go on the rise a little bit there. Next group of teams. Chargers at 16. Cornerback group, it's tough because I really like Asante Samuel Jr., especially for Brandon Staley's scheme. But again, young corners, it's one of those positions where the young guys, even if they're in the third, fourth year, they tend to be inconsistent. They could struggle, so he could struggle a little bit here and there. He's gonna get his hands on the ball at times for sure. Michael Davis, solid corner. Chris Harris Jr., very solid slot corner, could also play outside. That helps. Derwin James, Nasir Adderley. Adderley's got to step up. Derwin James got to stay healthy. If you can guarantee me that Derwin James is going to stay healthy, then they have that star power. I could boost them a little bit. But there's a lot of questions throughout this group. It's a group that I really want to like more. I mean, I have them in the top 16, but I do want to like more because the idea of it. Asante Samuel in that cover 4 scheme. Chris Harris Jr., Derwin James. There's some questions that go along with that group, though. Colts at 15, they're a little bit all over the place because I don't love their outside cornerback duo. We'll see, Rhodes played pretty well last year. We'll see where he is. He kind of came back down to earth later last year. Rock Ya-Sin has been struggling a little bit. So I'm not in love with the outside corner group, but then you factor in Kenny Moore, who for me is no doubt the best slot corner in football, who can play outside. So that helps. I do like the safety duo isn't like a great group. It's not wow. They're not big names. But Kahari Willis and Julian Blackman, pretty solid safety group. So I do like the safety group. I do like the slot corner. Don't love the outside corners. And the outside corners probably have the most value when you put everything together. But then you factor in that they can move some things around. Kenny Moore could actually play outside. They do have TJ Carey who could play in the slot. So that kind of could put Ya-Sin on the bench if he's struggling a little bit. So I do like that. So they cracked the top 15 there. Tennessee Titans at 14. A little deeper than I once thought, actually, because you can't forget about some young guys. Christian Fulton, where does he fit in the mix? They got a solid young LSU corner last year. That could be a solid rotation piece, actually. Could try to fight for the slot corner spot. But you have Jenkins and Farley on the outside. It's pretty solid corner duo. You have Byard, who's a big name safety, with Amani Hooker, Elijah Molden, who can play the slot at a high level. You have Fulton, Breon Borders. So they actually are a little deep. And they have, kind of that top-tier power with Kevin Byard in there as well. Washington football team at 13, like the new cornerback duo. One piece is new, and that's William Jackson with Kendall Fuller. And in the safety group, it's tough because we haven't really seen, Cameron Curl really took off, but that was when Collins was hurt. How will these guys pair together? But I do like the idea of it for sure. So that's a define that, a balanced group with those outside corners and the safeties. And then depth rotation pieces. Don't forget they added Bobby McCain. I think that's pretty good. They could be going more of the route of Curl and McCain at times. Really, Collins can step up, play like a linebacker position, which he does at times. So I do like the idea of that. They have Jimmy Moreland, Greg Stroman. So it's a pretty good, pretty balanced and deep group there that you can do different things with, and that's why they are 13. 12, the Bengals. Don't sleep on the Bengals secondary here. Trey Waynes, who I like, we'll see how he is after the injury, but I do like him as an outside corner. Chidobe Awuzie, that's where you probably can get better from that spot. They lost William Jackson, but you look at the slot, that really helps them. Mike Hilton, I think, is one of the better slot corners in football. I think they're going to blitz him a ton. Look forward to that. And then you look at safeties, one of the best safeties in football, Jesse Bates, and then Von Bell, who's a pretty solid, young, strong safety. And they have some depth, too. I mean, they got Phillips, and they have Eli Apple. They got some pieces there. Maybe not major pieces, but guys that can play, that can fill in for sure. So, I mean, they got Jesse Bates having a really good safety duo, but mainly Jesse Bates, and having some pretty good rotation pieces as well that got on the field last year. Definitely helps. Vikings coming at 11. Yeah, they turn into a deep secondary as well. It helps that they have the veteran guys, like Harrison Smith at safety and Patrick Peterson as well. But Bashaud Breeland. I mean, look at the cornerback group. I mean, who's going to start in the slot? They got options. They got Mackenzie Alexander. They got Jeff Gladney. They got Harrison Hand, who actually did pretty well last year. Cameron Dancer played well as a corner. He can battle Breeland. I mean, they got a number of guys. Xavier Woods with Harrison Smith. So they're pretty deep, especially across the board at the corner position, and they have those veteran leaders that can play at a high level as well. Rams coming at 10 helps that you have the best corner in football. Darius Williams, he played very well. Impressed, still has a little more to prove, but it's a pretty good, solid corner, mainly because of Ramsey. And you look at the slot will likely be a young Terrell Burgess from Utah, who I liked before he got injured last year. Safeties, Rapp, Fuller. It doesn't look like as big of a safety group because John Johnson's gone, but these guys are sneaky good here, so I do like that. And then you look at, I like to pick a Robert Rochelle. I don't expect a whole lot of him right away, perhaps, but David Long as well. But yeah, it's a pretty good group. Having Ramsey definitely helps. Ravens, tough to rank because they have the best cornerback duo in football. Number one, obviously. But safety group, I mean, they could get better at safety. I mean, I do like the way Chuck Clark fits Martindale's scheme. They're solid. Him and Elliott, solid. But it is really that cornerback group carrying it, but it's such a good corner group that it kind of boosts it up inside the top 10. But you do factor in a corner that would start on several other teams and Jimmy Smith, and you do see Smith with those other two corners on the field at once. Tavon Young, if he's healthy, pretty solid. They had Sean Wade. They have some pieces there, but having, corner being a little more important in most schemes, especially this scheme, than safety, having that top tier elite number one corner deal definitely helps you get in the top 10. Next, Tampa Bay Buccaneers is a very, very balanced group all the way through here. Love the outside cornerback duo, I should say the cornerback trio in general here together, which is Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and Sean Murphy Bunting. Really, the three of them stood out in the playoffs last year, and they're getting better along the way. Then you got Antoine Winfield, who's obviously getting better, and then Jordan Whitehead, who played very, very well down the stretch in the playoffs. And then you factor in Mike Edwards as well, Ross Cockrell. So they got some pieces there. Mike Edwards is very important, too. I talked about it in another video where, because Winfield is so versatile that he plays free, strong, he plays in the slot, in the box, and that's why they have Whitehead and Edwards. It works out so well. When Winfield's up front, Whitehead plays the back. When Winfield's in the back, Edwards is a very good, strong safety that can line up over tight end in the slot. So it works out pretty well. I like the way these guys play together. I love the chemistry which played a part here. I like that they're all of them are getting better every step of the way. So it's a pretty good group here. Big piece to them while they won the Super Bowl there. But many units help that, obviously. Patriots at 7, good cornerback duo. We'll see if Gilmore plays for them this year. That's getting interesting. I would expect him to, but we'll see. But Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, Definitely helps. And then Jonathan Jones, the slot corner, the cornerback group in general, very, very solid. McCourty, maybe declining a little bit, still pretty solid in a battle between guys like Phillips and Duggar for that other safety spot. Maybe if they're a little stronger at safety, they could be top tier, which they're getting pretty close here. Dolphins really grew on me during this process. We already knew they had one of the best cornerback duos in football with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Love that group for sure. Then they add Justin Coleman to play the slot. I like how they weren't afraid to get better there. You got Noah Igbinoghene, who they drafted in the first round, and maybe it was a little bit early. It's a guy that they wanted to play in the slot. Struggle a little bit. And they like him still. That's understandable. And some teams kind of just insist on that guy. But they went and kind of completed the secondary, adding Justin Coleman. I like that. But they still have Igbinoghene for rotation. They have Needham for rotation. They have a list of guys. Jason McCourty they added for rotation. You look at the safeties, though. You have Eric Rowe. Love Javon Holland. I think that's a plug-and-play type guy because he could play free, strong, and in the slot. Maybe similar to what Winfield did with the Buccaneers. So I love the balance to this group. I love the depth. I love the way they're coached. I like their scheme. And they have a top-tier cornerback duo to go along with it. So that's kind of all the pieces coming together, which made me really boost the Dolphins because, I had a rough draft together and then really sat down and broke all this down here. And the Dolphins, it really grew on me here, the idea of it. The Browns come at 5. Having Denzel Ward out there is fantastic. Greg, obviously, for this case, Greg Newsome, their rookie corner from Northwestern, in there, and other than that, Greedy Williams can play the cornerback position too. Battle Newsome, of course. So having that depth there is very important. They add Troy Hill to the slot, so they're very strong at the slot cornerback position as well. Safety group we know is strong with John Johnson, and you have Ronnie Harrison, and you also have Grant Delpit. So you have the starters, and you're in the slot position. You're very strong, and you have the depth as well. Can you factor in Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, who's a linebacker, but also kind of plays, that slot role as well. So I do like this group. It's pretty strong, and it's pretty damn deep as well. We go on to the top 4 here. The Giants, talk about deep. I mean, this is one of the deepest secondaries I've ever seen. Likely starting at corner is you have James Bradbury, who's getting better. He's a top 10 corner in football. Adoree Jackson still has potential. And then you look at the safeties, Jabril Peppers and Logan Ryan. Then you factor in Logan Ryan could start in a slot for you if you want him to. Then you have Darnay Holmes, who's a good young slot corner as well. Then you have Julian Love, who can play slot corner or play a safety position. You have Xavier McKinney, who was a top pick for a reason. He can play the safety position at a pretty high level. Then you draft a guy that I really liked at Central Florida, Aaron Robinson, who can play as effective outside and inside. It's ridiculous what the Giants have here. They have some good ball players, James Bradbury, Jabril Peppers, etc. And you have depth, you have versatility. So you actually can really play games with offenses here. Like I mentioned, Logan Ryan can be at safety, one rep. He can play at slot, and that can just change everything. So you really can play mind games with pre-snap with quarterbacks in offenses there. Buffalo Bills at 3. Having some, star power here, having a star cornerback in Tre'Davious White and having a star safety duo in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde really, really helps. They're not super deep, but other starters, you'll look at Levi Wallace, Taron Johnson, pretty solid slot guy there. We've seen him make a big play in the playoff game there, but other than that, he's been pretty solid as well. Not super deep, so that's why it was tough, The Giants are extremely, extremely deep. The Browns are deep, but the Bills just got that star power up there. They do have Dane Jackson. I actually love the DeMar Hamlin pick. I think he's just got Bills safety written all over him. It's a big reason why they drafted him, obviously. So they kind of have those pieces as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they added another corner here in late free agency in the offseason. So the Bills come in at 3. I got the Packers at 2. You have a top tier cornerback in Jair Alexander, and then you have a top 3 safety duo in Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage. Amos, your strong safety, Savage, your playmaking free safety there. And then you look at the opposite side of the field is Alexander, the cornerback position. Whether it's Kevin King or Stokes, it's solid. I like that they tried to go out and get better with Stokes. Realistically, Stokes is so good playing underneath that you could play him in the slot and keep Kevin King outside, but you do have Chandon Sullivan, who is a pretty good slot corner there as well. So you kind of have that. Yeah, you have a top tier corner, top tier safety duo players here. You have a little bit of depth there. You have a little bit of flexibility, versatility in there. So I do love that. The Broncos, crazy because how much struggles they had at the cornerback position last year. They come in at number 1, but those struggles were mainly because of injuries and then suspension. There was that Bouye for the suspension. But you have my top safety duo here in Justin Simmons, who is my top safety, and Kareem Jackson, who is a very solid, strong safety, very good at playing in the box if he needs to, or your typical strong safety position, or coming up and just making a big play in the backfield or along the line of scrimmage. And you drafted a couple guys, too. I like Jamar Johnson. That's a playmaker, can do different things. With him, wasn't a huge Caden Stearns guy, but you have another piece there. Look at the cornerback position. The starting corner is Kyle Fuller, who's feels like he's getting better. Remember, he struggled early in his career. And you have Patrick Surtain, who fits Fangio's scheme beautifully. That's why they drafted him over a quarterback, which some people thought they should take because it was that much of a fit and that good of a player. And you have Darby. I wasn't in love with the Darby signing, but at the end of the day, he's still a solid corner. And you have him. You have Bryce Callahan, who could also play outside, but I believe he'll start in the slot because he's a very good slot corner. And you have O.J. Mudia, who was, I thought better than expected last year because he's going from Iowa just runs heavy. They just run zone more than anybody in college football. And then you go to Fangio's Denver Broncos scheme, which is as much cover one as anybody. Maybe the Cardinals ran a little more, and he played pretty well. So, I mean, you have the pieces here. You have the starters. You have the depth. You have the young guys that can continue to get better. I think these guys really, complement each other really well. We know a lot of these guys fit Fangio's scheme, but they really – I think they together, makes them even better here with their chemistry and their ability to kind of feed off each other. So I got the Broncos at 1. Those are my secondary rankings. Again, we did safety duos, corner duos, ranked players by position. We got some more units on the way. We got everything on the way, either on the channel or on the way. We got you covered here. Cannot wait for the NFL season to start. We have you covered during that as well. Follow our Twitter, very important. Smash that like button, subscribe, all that. Much, much appreciated. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.